3 p.m. in Freetown. Good afternoon and welcome to News Hour live on the Salon Broadcasting Corporation. Kima Macaulay. Coming up in this edition of News Hour, academic staff of the University of Sierra Leone resumed their strike action. Sierra Leone records deaths of more men than women in 2020. We shall get the views of Sierra Leoneans on that. And as inmates from the country's correctional service get presidential pardon, some raised concerns over the food they were given in detention. All the stories and more lined up. But first, let's take our coronavirus preventive message.
You see where them people here wear them mask them fine? Well, now so you say for wear your mask. Cover your nose and much all time where you dey near other person.
The National Civil Registration report on births and deaths indicates that over 20,000 deaths were reported for the year 2020. According to the data, the country lost more men when compared to women. 54% of those who died in 2020 were men as compared to the female, which accounted for 46%. The Director of Births and Deaths Directorate, NCRA, Brahma Victor Kamara, in an interview with SLBC's Ibrahim Samoa, has started by giving a rundown of the 2020 births and deaths reports.
For 2020, January to December, we are able to record 130,978 live births, of which 51% were girls and 49% were boys. And also during this period under review, we had a total number of 20,491 deaths, of which 54% were males and 46% females.
It seems that you recorded more deaths for men than women. What response was that?
Now comprehensive analysis which will be coming out in the early trimester of this year. But realistically, we will also look at our medical causes of the test for the mortality trend, and we will be able to make it public that who exactly know where are the causes of those deaths between respective sex and age.
So when you talk about stigmas, what do you mean?
Stigma, these are occurrences of death immediately after that. These are accidents that happen there. These are what they refer to as stigma.
So for 2020, so what can the result you say?
For 2020, we also recorded about 59% of the stigma, which is 1,401, 59% were male and 41% were female.
So Mr. Kamara, did you also take into consideration those ones that many times the mortuary refer to test tubes? Did you take into consideration when you are compiling the statistics for any year?
As long as the identity of the this is made available, because this incident does not occur in our facilities, they occur within the jurisdiction of the healthcare facilities, and we have registrars there, or Minister of Health staff that are trained as registrars. So they capture those information for us and the identity of those people, so that record it and make it available to the public.
So how many children can you able to record for taking to that when we are born?
2020, I've just given you the information. We were able to record about 130,978. Of this number, 96% were registered.
Now that we are in 2021, so what kind of piece of advice you want to give? Because if you watch the statistics, you realize that we recorded more death for men and that of women. So what advice do you want to give?
Well, these are just good information. When really we look at the medical causes of death and look at the mortality trend in respect to the causes, will be able to share a close collaboration with the Ministry of Health. We have certain jobs that have more risk in terms of fatality when those occurrences is concerned. Take for example the commercial sector of drivers. Over 90% of drivers in the commercial sectors are males. So in terms of occurrences of those incidents, we definitely the figure for male will be on the increase. And even in the formal and informal sector, in terms of seeking breadwinning and livelihood issues, we have more male that are formally employed. And also, male in a situation, these are the breadwinners of the family, and these are people that carry all the burden of the family. So a lot of stress are also put on us. And most of the non-communicable diseases now has to do with conditions like hypertension, that predisposing factors like this.
Well, that was the director of the National Civil Registration Authority, Burma Victor Kamara, ending that interview with Ibrahim Samora. President Julius Maada Bio in his New Year's speech spoke about how the outbreak of COVID-19 affected the implementation of government programs. However, Sierra Leone has been rated by the Centers for Disease Control and Protection and Prevention, WHO, APRM, for fighting the virus with less infection compared to other countries and protecting livelihoods. However, the president spoke about his gains in the past 2 years, especially in the fight against corruption, improvement of international standing, and increasing the country's image. He said in 2021, we be a better and encourage citizens to continue to work harder and focus and to strive to make the nation a peaceful one. Now let's have an excerpt from the president's speech.
Fellow citizens, 2020 has been an exceptional year, a year in which the raging worldwide COVID-19 pandemic has killed over 1.7 million people, including our fellow Sierra Leoneans at home and abroad. A year in which worldwide healthcare systems and economies have struggled. A year in which worldwide anxiety and fear are shaking hopes for the future. We took a licking, like all countries in the world and in the sub-region. But we have kept on ticking as a nation. We have demonstrated our unity, resilience, and perseverance as a nation. We have showcased a leadership with empathy, churned out opportunity out of adversity, and continued keeping our promises to the nation for progressive and accountable governance of the state. In 2020, Sierra Leone has been recognized the world over for simply doing the right things really well. We collectively resolved 2 years ago that our nation must no longer be defined by the stigma of the past as a helpless, corrupt nation, vulnerable to pestilence, prone to bloody wars, racked by human trafficking and illegal migrations, and creaking under the burden of bad governance and failure. Our international standing, image, and respectability as a nation have continued to improve in 2020. For the first time in the country's history, one of our nation's best judges, Justice Mieta Samba, beat out worldwide competition to be elected judge on the International Criminal Court. After a decade more, we paid our dues to major international institutions, and we have deepened and heightened our multilateral engagements with nations and institutions all over the world. We continue to provide continental leadership for the C10, for the much overdue reform of the United Nations Security Council.
To discuss further on the President's speech, I have Mohamed Lamabar, who is a member of the Strategic Communications Unit in the Ministry of Information and Communications. Good afternoon and welcome to Newshour.
Thank you for having me. Good afternoon.
Now tell us, what was the focus of the President's speech?
Well, like you rightly heard from the President, despite the fact that COVID-19 was a global pandemic and erupted, the plans of countries across the globe. And of course, we have several lives lost, to COVID-19 across also. And of course, we also how it also ravaged, and it continued to ravage global economies, despite the fact that, all of these things were there evident, and of course disrupted the plans of the new direction in 2020. Of course, you can recall that the President, during the opening of this year, of course, when the retreat that was organized by the Chief Office of the Chief Minister admonished his minister that this year is going to be a year of delivery. But despite the fact that we had the COVID-19, and of course, that does not actually preclude the government from, recording certain gains, moving forward. Of course, during the trying times of COVID-19, we were able to do cash transfers to people with disabilities, and of course, also through NACSA, we supported, the informal sector, close to 29,000 people across the country. We gave them money, for them to actually sustain themselves and start up some small businesses. And of course, we also saw that government, put aside 500 billion for us to ensure that we are able to support, importers in country to, ensure that we have our stock level is is in place, that for us not to have any shortage of any local commodities, for example rice, oil and all of those things. We deferred their taxes, for the time being and all of that. Despite all of that, also we still continue to support the free quality education. We've seen the investment in the energy sector, and of course we've launched the electrification of 7 districts across the country. And of course, also we saw the CLSG road electrification expansion project, expansion project.
Now, in his speech, he stated that he has strengthened the Sexual Offences Act and the establishment of sexual model court. How important is this issue to the government?
It is very, very important, because we know the issue of rape is endemic in Sierra Leone, and of course most times people go unpunished for it because you don't have, and of course cases delay in court due to lack of evidence or lack of cooperation. So perpetrators, always go scot-free, once they commit such, outrageous acts, especially, and at the end of the day, the victims will continue to suffer without, any, adequate judgment or, penalties being, imposed to the perpetrators. So the victims will have everything to lose. Of course, since inception, we have ensured that we review the Sexual Offences Act of 2012. We've actually included stiffer punishments for perpetrators. We have established the modern courts specifically for rape cases. So it tells you the level of commitment from the government
and
ensuring that we actually stop, or minimize the rate of rape.
The establishment of the sexual model court is not only one of the important things that the government did. There also the expulsion of the seditious libel law, which is very important.
Yeah, sure. Of course, these are the President. Of course, if you look at him carefully, he has done under 3 years several things that he promised the people, upon which those promises resonated with the aspirations of the people. And he has actually predicated his promises that he's going to deliver on them. You understand? And we've seen right through the last 2.5 years that every year in, year out, he has been delivering on those promises.
Now, apart from
like the repeal of the Part 5 of the 1965 Public Act is a manifesto promise. And we've seen of course, that will also boost investment opportunities for the media. It will also ensure that media practitioners will actually be because it's unfair for one to be criminalized for practicing, for example, journalism in Sierra Leone. So that particular law was obnoxious. We know that its usefulness in our laws had long been outlived, so there was no need for us to keep it. So the President promised and he delivered, and of course that has also culminated into our global rating. Of course, our global standing now as a country under this direction is, is something to write home about. You understand? For example, like us passing the NCC, for the first time, we have, as a country become COMPA eligible. You understand? And of course, also in 2018, also we are Sierra Leone passed the human trafficking, assessment done by the United States Department. You understand? So all of these things are indicators that have positioned our global standing in the very good footing for us moving forward.
Now, apart from the outbreak of the coronavirus, which is worldwide, what other challenges would you say the government faced in 2020?
There are a lot of challenges. The challenges, for example, like with the economy, you understand, had it been the fact that the government was swift enough during the outbreak of coronavirus to establish or roll out the Quick Action Economic Response Program to ensure that we support people, and of course also devise strategies how we able to maintain the economy. We have been cash flows, we have been also in the importation of goods and services, we'll also be fighting coronavirus. All of these things were very, very challenging for the government, you understand? But fortunately, we have the right, competent people, around, and of course, with the leadership displayed by the president, it actually, ensured that we actually sailed through. Well, there were challenges, but we were able to deliver, and of course, take the country along without its repercussion, being felt by the people that much, like what we used to face in the past, you understand? So because of the prudent leadership style of His Excellency, we actually, of course, look at the handling of the COVID-19 is also something to write home about, you understand? That was significant. So the CDC, for example, the Center for Control Disease in America, stated that Sierra Leone is one of the 4 counties that have actually led by example in the fight against COVID-19, you understand? And of course, that's followed by WHO. They have lavished praises on Sierra Leone, our methodologies, and of course, the way we treated the response, and all of that.
You keep mentioning the Quick Action Economic Program. Do you think it was properly implemented?
Yeah, sure, it was. Because the 500 billion, for example, that was set aside to give out with small concessional interest rate of 7% to big importers, for example, helped a lot. That's why throughout the COVID-19, especially at the peak, you understand, there was no shortage of any commodity in the market.
But there was a price hike.
Yeah, so of course, if you look at the indicator, it shows that we passed the inflation rate. You understand, in the recently MCC scorecard release, you understand, at 14.8%. It should not exceed 15%. We know we need to do more. We know that is not actually the price. People probably want to actually be buying things, but these are challenging moments. And market, we are not actually producing most of these. The prices of these particular commodities are driven by other external factors. You understand? So, but we have been able to ensure that we maintain the hike in price at a very stable rate. Of course, if you go to statistics also, you see the data. You understand? And the recent MCC scorecard underscored the fact that we have been able to control, especially inflation, in the last 1 year. You understand? At the greater than 16.8%.
Now let's go to agriculture. We know it's key in the development of every country. And
Correct.
for Sierra Leone, rice is our staple food. And in the speech I saw where President said $54 million have been invested or is to be invested
Correct.
in agriculture, the production of rice.
Correct.
How soon would we see the implementation of that project?
Well, we have signed the project. It will start at any moment from now. And of course, that
When you say start, what exactly do you mean? Because when we talk of the issue of rice production, it's important or passionate to the people of Sierra Leone.
Correct. This year, you understand? This year, hopefully in the first part of this year, of course, we will see the start of, because the cultivation, the planting of rice, and of course its cultivation, involves a lot of machinery. Especially, it has to be mechanized farming. So it's not something that will be done within a month's time. You understand? The fact of the matter, what is important is that we have succeeded to get $54 million especially in the agricultural sector, to grow rice in Kauntigi. The spot has been identified, Rumbi in Port Loko district, and of course also that will kickstart this year, which is continuous efforts by the president to ensure that we actually go as a country as food self-sufficient.
The cost of rice.
Well, it is, yes, that is one, but not that. It will also reduce the rate of importation at least. But the target of the president is by 2023 we should be able to reduce the rate of importation, especially of rice, on rice by 20 to 25 or 30%. You understand? And that is not only the, of course the president is leading by example. You go across the Southeast now, you see individuals, companies, groups, organizations go into the plantation of rice. And of course, if you go on social media, people are sending out their work on social media, and you see the interest, especially in the food production chain across the Southeast. So it tells you that there's hope, and we encourage more organizations will actually go into that cultivation to ensure that it becomes food self-sufficient.
Tell us, do you think citizens are in tune with what he said in his speech?
Well, yeah, it resonated because all what he said in the speech are facts. You understand? For example, like the cash transfer he spoke about, these are facts. You understand? The rice production, it is a fact. Of course, also the route, over 1,000 kilometers of trunk road is going to be actually rehabilitated, across the country to connect, rural communities, especially aiding them to transport their commodities, in urban areas. You understand? So all these are facts, and it resonated well with the aspirations of the people, and we are, of course, the expectation is that having been the fact that COVID-19 erupted, we will have been talking about much more successes. Of course, the fishery sector, you spoke about that. But one thing I want to leave with you is that this particular speech does not entail everything. This is a new year, speech presidents normally give out every new year, but a much detailed form will actually be seen when the president will address the nation in parliament.
Thank you very much, Mohamed Lamouba. He is from the Strategic Communications Unit in the Ministry of Information and Communications. Members of the Academic Staff Association of the University of Sierra Leone have resumed their strike action, which they suspended in December in order to allow students end their examinations. ASA late last year demanded adjustment of its salaries and embarked on an industrial action. But due to some interventions, the strike action was suspended so that students will finish their examinations. ASA did state that it will resume the industrial action on the 31st of December if its demands are not addressed. Our reporter Mohamed Kamara visited FBC campus and in a report.
Frobe College cannot be said to be entirely empty in spite of the recess and ASA's industrial strike action. For some students, the resumption of ASA's strike is not a surprise, while for others it is. At a general meeting held on the 4th December 2020 at IPAM, the Academic Staff Association, University of Sierra Leone, resolved to suspend the industrial strike action till the 31st December 2020, pending a signed written commitment to actualize ASA's foremost demand, which is 100% salary adjustment. The suspension of the industrial strike action, which was as a result of appeals from several stakeholders, went on for over 2 weeks, the specified period that the USL administration requested for to complete the second semester examination. In a press release published by the Academic Staff Association on the 4th of December 2021, it was stated that ASA held 2 meetings with stakeholders of Ministries of Labour and the Ministry of Technical and Higher Education. Together, all stakeholders agreed on the following: that salary review within the university system in Sierra Leone is long overdue, that ASA's request for salary adjustment is justified, that a meeting with President Bio is strategic if the issue is to be resolved. The two ministers of Technical and Higher Education and Labour promised individually during the first and second meeting to book appointment for them to see President Bio to chart the way forward. As the new year begins, this is what the students have been greeted with. SLBC News, Mohamed Kouma reporting.
Well, in the studio I have with me our SLBC reporter Mohamed Simbikoma, and he is here to tell us exactly what happened at FBC campus. Good afternoon and welcome to News Hour.
Good afternoon, Daphne Kimama Koli. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, describe to us what exactly you saw on campus.
Okay, today I think I'm very happy today because I went to Fairview College campus. The situation was calm. We have few students on campus. As we know this morning, ASA published a press release with regards resuming their industrial strike. And then before now, ASA had that particular strike, and it came to time, they suspended that particular strike, and now they are resuming it back because their demands is yet to be met. Today on Fairview College campus, many students, some of them, it's a surprise to them, while others, it isn't a surprise at all, because some of them said the ASA paused, or ASA allowed them to complete their examinations for a short period of time, and they believe that after the examination, ASA could come up again with this particular strike action. So therefore, it's not a surprise to them. But some students on campus, they are of the thinking that whether college will resume now or college won't resume, especially for those who are going to final year. Some are saying, we want to complete our entire course, we want to get our degrees now. So if ASA is taking this particular action at this particular time, I think they are at risk.
So now, tell us, were you able to talk to any member of ASA?
Well, unfortunately, I called Mrs. James, the president of ASA. It's unfortunate she was not on campus. She messaged me and said, later, we are going to talk on that. And also, I attempted to talk to Dr. Tunyamusa, who also told me that he will respond only after.
Yeah, because I wanted to ask if you are able to talk to any member of the college administration.
No, I was unable. I made attempts, but it was unfortunate. It's only that I was just getting hearsays from students. Some are not happy. Understand? You see the mood, because many of them want to start, especially those that also want to gain admission to Fairview College. All of this, they see it as a kind of impediment to the pursuit of their education.
Okay, thank you very much. He is Mohammed Simbikoma, a reporter from the Sierra Leone Broadcasting Corporation, who went to FBC campus in connection to the strike action by staff or academic staff of the college. On New Year's Day, more than 200 inmates received presidential pardon, which is prerogative that a country's constitution bestowed on the president. The released inmates were drawn from various prisons in the country. Ibrahim Samwa witnessed the release of some of them at the country's maximum correctional service center.
It was a moment of joy for these 65 inmates with smiles on their faces as they walked out of the new correctional center here at Pandemba Road in Freetown as free men.
In a life, every day.
They sang songs of praises to their maker for perhaps the shock they felt upon hearing their names announced. Former Defense Minister and opposition politician Alfred Palo Conte was among the inmates that were pardoned by President Julius Maada Bio as part of the New Year's amnesty, a prerogative guaranteed by the country's constitution. Palo Conte's release came months before he was due to serve out his 16-month jail term for unlawful possession of arms. Over 200 convicted inmates nationwide, including 4 females, were also released after they had met the criteria set up. Before their release, Acting Deputy Director General, Sierra Leone Correctional Service, Ahmed Toure, admonished the inmates to serve as change agents, noting that they should count themselves lucky to be selected by President Bio among thousands of inmates in the correctional centers across the country.
Let me just say thanks to the president. Keep on this sort of good work. Make sure you comport yourself, make sure you carry yourself fine, which is very good for you. Don't come here again. We want to see you on the street. Let's chat together and crack jokes together. It's not easy to keep yourself within the walls of the Sierra Leone Correctional Center. It will be so difficult. Man, if this sort of thing is happening, it's not going to be confined to Freetown Center, Milk Correctional Center. I mean, all over correctional institutions nationwide. You go to Kanima, you go to Kaila, you go to Bonth, you go to Batrujon. All these institutions are effective today.
A committee was set up by government chaired by Vice President to review the case files, and all the released inmates met the criteria.
For Western Area Urban, we released 79, including female. Western Area Rural, we released 13, all male. Northwest Region, we released 12. Northeast Region, we released 65. Eastern Region, we released 41, all male. Southern Region, we released 56. If you compute that, we have 246 inmates, including 4 female inmates. Well, the crimes that we look out for in terms of recommending these inmates to the prerogative of mercy committee are those who commit misdemeanors and not felonies.
The inmates who were in a cheering mood lauded President Bio for pardoning them and promised to be peaceful and law-abiding citizens. They pleaded to President Bio on behalf of the remaining prisoners to reconstruct the skills training and the health centers that were burnt down during an attempted prison break in April last year.
We don't have for which today we can't get with freedom.
We they ask the president, and we not say president in anything talking you do am. And we not say they call out and as you talk say when see I not say if they talk something you do am.
99% of these inmates had served years in prison, convicted with crimes ranging from larceny to robbery and fraudulent conversion, among others. Their release now means they will again have to reintegrate themselves in their various societies. Ibrahim Samoa, Freetown.
Well, some of the released inmates raised concern on the kind of food they were given in prison. To respond to this, I have in the studio the Public Relations Officer of the Sierra Leone Correctional Service, Leslie Cole Showers. Good afternoon and welcome to News Up.
Good afternoon, SLBC. Good afternoon to viewer.
Now, before we start talking about the kind of food given to the inmates, let's talk about the release of this inmate. What are some of the criteria?
Well, it's simple. First of all, the presidential pardon is not done out of the compass of the legal framework in this country. If you look at the 1991 Constitution of Sierra Leone, Act number 6, Section 40, subsection 4, paragraph E, gives the president the prerogative of mercy power, you know. And if you look at section 63 of the same constitution, it gives birth to the prerogative of mercy committee that is chaired by the vice president of this country and also encompasses other highly placed people in society in the committee, such as the Director General of the Sierra Leone Correctional Service, the Inspector General of Police, the Minister of Internal Affairs, the head of the Office of National Security, head of CISU, head of CID, the Attorney General, etc. So it is such that we, the Sierra Leone Correctional Service, come up with recommended names, which is eventually reduced to a list of names that we send to the prerogative of mercy committee to have a look at it. But the criteria that we put, you know, for an inmate to be recommended for the presidential pardon is such that the inmate is an inmate who did not commit a felonious crime but a misdemeanor. There are two types of crimes, felonies and misdemeanors. Felonies are serious and high crimes in society, such as murder, for example, and misdemeanors are petty crimes, such as frequenting traffic violations.
Now, what about attempted treason? Which category does that fall?
Attempted treason falls under felony. It's a felonious crime.
And that individual should not be given pardon.
What are you driving at? I do not understand.
What I'm trying to say is I want to know the category or the manner in which the opposition politician Alfred Paulo Conte was released.
Well, we were not keeping any opposition politician. We were keeping an individual like we kept every other individual that was granted the presidential pardon. So as I was saying, we more often than not, we consider those who commit misdemeanors. And
so on which basis
on our own part
released?
as an institution? I'm coming, please. Emiland. On our own part as an institution, that is what we do, and forward the list to the Prerogative of Mercy Committee. That is not done and dusted. The committee can look at that list and send it back to us and say, we are not satisfied with this list. You have sent 300 names to us. We want this list to be scissored from 300 to 250. But they can say, we want added number to this list. We want you to make it 250. Because we are the ones dealing with the clientele, who are the inmates, and not the Prerogative of Mercy Committee. So we know them better. So if such things happen, we know how we go about reducing the number of people that we recommended, or adding the number of people that we recommended based on the feedback that we get from the Prerogative of Mercy Committee. And the Prerogative of Mercy Committee meets at least 3 times. You know, it is a multi-layered process. It does not just happen from out of the blues. It has to go through series of bureaucratic processes before it eventually gets back to us for execution. As for the issue that you're raising, that we release one inmate whom the public is thinking that we shouldn't have released him based on certain reasons. That's why it's called the Prerogative of Mercy. You know, it is a special kind of right that is vested in the president, and it is a discretionary right. No one has the right to question the president as to why he has taken such a decision. It is constitutional right, and he has decided to exercise it, and he has instructed us to let him walk out of our gates, and we have only followed instructions.
Okay, now let's go to the kind of food given to inmates. There is an allegation by some of the released inmates that they're not so happy with the kind of food, but from what I heard from one of our sisters program is that actually they have the food, but there is this problem of how to prepare the food.
Well, we have professional cooks in our different correctional centers, and I know that issue emanates specifically from the Pademba Correctional Center, which in all honesty is not reflective of the nation as a whole, because we have 21 correctional centers, of which Pademba is just one. But we have professional cooks, and another thing the public needs to understand is the fact that the Pademba Correctional Center is jam-packed with a lot of inmates. It is the maximum correctional center. Imagine you cooking every day for up to 2,000 inmates on a daily basis. It is a very rigorous and difficult process. I was in the interview this morning when they were asking the inmates, you know, he said the food usually comes in, they see the condiments and those kinds of things, but at the end of the day, it is not particularly visible in their plate. I do not want to believe that is true, because this is the same food that they cook at the Pademba Correctional Center that the Director General of the Sierra Leone Correctional Service partakes of once in a while. Even I sit in here, I get to partake of the food once in a while. The truth is, maybe it is not what they want us to prepare that we are preparing for them. You know, there's the saying, one man's food is another man's poison. There is something that I will eat that will torment me, and you eat it, it will not torment you.
No, even as prisoners, they have the right to food and to good food.
Yes, definitely. The food they prepare for them is not bad food. It is not poison. It is good food. Otherwise, all of them would have been dead by now.
Now, okay. Now, before you go, tell us what is the standard of food given to them, because you might call it a good food, but to them it isn't. So let's know the standard of food given to them. Is it a balanced diet or something?
When you speak of balanced diet, you're referring to food. You're referring to all sort of food. What we provide to them is the staple food in Sierra Leone, which is rice, and the sauce, which can either be cassava leaves, green, crane, you know, potato leaves, tola, etc. Those are the kinds of dish we prepare for them, including the rice, because rice is our staple food. 99% of people in Sierra Leone eat rice. So that's the kind of food we provide to them, and in the morning hours they get to drink tea and eat bread.
Okay, thank you very much for being part of News Hour.
Thank you for having me this afternoon.
Well, he is Leslie Kochawans, the Public Relations Officer of the Sierra Leone Correctional Service. The Executive Director of Foundation for Financial and Economic Inclusion, Vandi Jasper Kamara, has said that an important step towards increasing financial inclusion by all is addressing financial illiteracy. For that reason, a team from the foundation has embarked on a financial literacy campaign to residents of Bond District to learn how to use their finances appropriately. Aminata Fofana reports.
The objective of the campaign was for residents to gain knowledge on how to become financially disciplined by way of prioritizing needs and learning to save the resources they realize from their farming and small-scale businesses, as it is an important step in building an inclusive financial system in the country. The Executive Director of Foundation for Financial and Economic Inclusion, Vandi Jasper Kamara, said if residents spend their finances accordingly, they will be able to monitor government-implemented projects, and this will speed up development in the country.
The focus of the campaign was to ensure that we synthesize and change the mindset of our people for them to be part of the financial system in Bond Island, for them to take those financial institutions now in that particular community as institutions that they can able to be part of and have accounts and save their money and do their necessary businesses. Because the provision of financial services in any community, it creates a platform for development.
Mr. Vandi continued that lack of basic financial knowledge and skills limits people's ability to make the right decision for their financial security, affects the welfare of their children, and later results to additional burden on public budgets at all levels and will slow down economic growth. The residents say they were pleased to be educated with such useful ideas, as most of them have been spending their earnings erroneously, but with such enlightenment, they will now use their finances wisely and will also be able to monitor projects within their vicinities. Bond District is a small locality in the country in terms of size and population, according to a 2015 survey report, and it is gradually catching up with developments. With the absence of banking services, many people have fallen victim to microfinance fraudsters, and such training underlines the need to broaden financial inclusion for the rural poor. SLBC News, Aminata Fofana.
Many thanks to Aminata Fofana for that report. Built in 1882, Jamiu Salam in Freetown is one of the oldest mosques in Freetown, which has been open to worshippers again after undergoing almost 3 years of refurbishment and extension. And as Suri Ibrahim Kamar reports, the grand official opening was marked by dignitaries including the Vice President of Sierra Leone.
It was one of the grandest renovations and extension of one of Freetown's most populous places of worship, the Fullerton Mosque or Jamiu Salam. Preparation had started about 6 years ago. However, effective work started 3 years later. The project was estimated at 3 billion leones, according to the building committee chairperson, Alhaji Dr. Akim Jibril. Refurbishment was focused on the entire structure, while the extension was mostly directed at the basement and women's section of the mosque. The extension has now made the mosque one of the biggest in the country, with a capacity of up to 1,000 worshippers in non-COVID periods, and half of that number during COVID-19. The ceremony was graced by several political and non-political personalities, including the Vice President, Dr. Mohamed Julde Jallo, who formally reopened the mosque and oversaw the launching of the maintenance fund. The fund is meant to mobilize all finances towards the maintenance of the mosque. At its launch, it had already garnered about 200 million leones. As a Fuller and Muslim himself, Vice President Dr. Mohamed Julde Jallo said his family had a long history with the Fullerton Mosque, and he hailed it to have stood the test of time.
This mosque, every man don't say that the mosque like this would have been the first Islamic centers where make, if you see Islam, you know, today the Western area, that we go amongst them, brothers them, and grandparents, we've been courageous enough for establish this, we can stand by it. So today, I'm really happy for see the grandchildren, the sons and daughters them from Fulaton, then join hands together for do this masterpiece work. I want to tell you thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Jamil Salam was first established in 1830 but was destroyed by fire. Part of the current structure was begun in 1882 in Fullerton community. The mosque claims its origin to the Fuller ethnic group in Sierra Leone. For SLBC News, Sori Ibrahim Kamara.
Well, it's now time for news around the African continent. Niger's Prime Minister says 100 people are now known to have been killed in Saturday's attack by suspected jihadists on 2 villages. Brigui Rafini said 70 people were killed in the village of Chombagu and 30 others in Zarum Deri, both near Niger's border with Mali. It was one of the deadliest days in the living memory as Niger grapples with ethnic violence and Islamist militancy. No group has said it carried out the attacks. According to local mayor Almu Hassan, those responsible traveled on about 100 motorcycles. AFP news agency reports they split into 2 groups and carried out the attacks simultaneously. Millions of children are returning to primary and secondary schools in Kenya. Final year students had resumed in-person learning in October but took a short break over the festive season. The Ministry of Education has issued guidance aimed at preventing the spread of coronavirus. These include urging teachers to utilize every available space, including learning under trees, to ensure social distancing. Parents have been asked to buy face masks for their children, and the government promised to distribute some to needy students. Teachers aged over 58 years and those with pre-existing conditions have been asked to work remotely or teach in open spaces. Rebel forces have seized a southeastern city in the Central African Republic, an official from the country's United Nations mission says. The rebels staged a dawn raid and were now everywhere in Bangassou. A rebel coalition has attacked several towns in recent weeks and currently controls two-thirds of the country. They accuse the government of holding a fraudulent election on 27 December. The government has denied allegations of poll rigging. Initial results of the election for president and seats in the National Assembly are expected on Monday. Well, that's all for news around the African continent. Now let's go for entertainment news.
Hello and welcome to Entertainment News. I am Cynthia Kamal. A German-based gospel recording artist, singer and songwriter Cyrus Richard Togbo has released his single titled God of Wonders.
The one who rebuked the whole Red Sea, made a way through the wilderness. With water you slayed the enemies. How can I not see your wondrous works?
The Chief Executive Officer of CTR Music, who is also the founder and host of Place Unlimited, a weekly virtual gospel show on Afro Media Network TV has hosted the likes of our K. Fofana, Judah Zubairu, Juliet Soiree, and others on the show. Having served in various ministries for years, Cyrus Ritchie, as he is commonly called, made his official debut as a recording artist in 2018 with the song titled Most High God, and followed with Hallowed Be Thy Name in 2019.
She bow and worship you as long as I can breathe. That you are my all sufficient. Oh God, Adonai, worship you.
Cyrus Ritchie is a Sierra Leonean who grew up in a God-fearing home where Christian values were installed in him. And now for the international arena of entertainment. Ex-Big Brother Naija housemate Nengi has received as birthday gift a Range Rover Sport Edition worth about 600 million naira. The car gift is from a fan base called Niggas, who thought it fits that their queen deserves a new car. The mind you, Nengi and also are still in their love relationship, whilst Prince has presented Dorothy to her parents as a royal family. Well, I think their relationship is gradually getting to alter. And well, that's all we have time for. Thanks for joining me, and I'm wishing you a blessed and prosperous 2021. Goodbye.
Well, many thanks to Cynthia Kamal for entertainment news. To end the news, a recap of the main points. Academic staff of the University of Sierra Leone have resumed their strike action. Sierra Leone has recorded more deaths for men than women in 2020, according to the National Civil Registration Authority. And released inmates from the country's correctional service have raised concern over the food they were given in detention. Well, that's all we have time for in this edition of News. I am Daphne Kima Macaulay. Continue to watch the SLBC if you can.